The city of Kent, the midway point along the line, was selected as the operating base for the interurban. Early each morning, conductors received their orders from the depot, while motormen went to the car barn to make last-minute inspections. From the second floor of the rambling wooden station, dispatchers scheduled an average of 122 regular trains each day. Planning logistics were made even more complicated when incoming and outgoing trains, moving at speeds between 30 and 60 miles an hour, had to avoid each other over the single-track portions of the line. 2 days after the line went into operation, officers reported that the interurban had no interruptions in service and that the trains made their schedules without a single delay.
Ticket agents in Seattle and Tacoma were busy since the first day. The motormen and conductors are fast becoming familiar with the route and are making record time every trip. The Daily Ledger.
Passengers paying 60 cents for a one-way ticket and $1 for a round trip were given a transfer in Seattle or Tacoma to continue their commute on streetcars within the cities. News to and from the many communities was quickly spread by passengers' word of mouth as well as by newspapers delivered on the railway's freight trains. Children of farming families attended school more regularly as the interurban offered a dependable means of transportation. Almost overnight, the small towns and big cities were no longer isolated from one another, but were now united as the Puget Sound region, with the interurban as its lifeline.
Our journey on the interurban begins in Tacoma. People have come from different parts of Tacoma by streetcar. Most of the streetcars terminate same place as the interurban, others within walking distance. They would board the interurban, close the door, and head toward Seattle.
Seattle Limited Train, Auburn, Kent, and Seattle. All aboard!
2 short blasts of the whistle would signal the motorman to proceed. The interurban headed south on Pacific Avenue, through downtown Tacoma, then headed east on Puyallup Avenue. Out of the city, it passed through the small towns of Waverly, Tidehaven, Goldow, and Willow. The city of Puyallup was not on the interurban's direct route, but it was large enough to merit rail service. In December 1908, Puget Sound Electric opened the Puyallup Short Line. This 6.3-mile spur heading southeast from Willow Junction provided superior service from Tacoma to Puyallup. The operation of switching trains to the Puyallup track ran smoothly, but occasionally errors were made.
The crew on the Puyallup train did not close the switch, and the switch was a line for the Puyallup line, and the limited train from Tacoma hit that open switch at 35 miles an hour and turned over and demolished a coal shed.
Back on the main line, continuing east alongside Hyblos Creek, the interurban made its way through a steep canyon and then out to farmland. Cattle guards were placed at intersections to keep the animals from stepping on the electrified third rail. Contacting this rail and another metal object, like the standard rail next to it, could easily electrocute and kill.
Children were taught from an early age to respect that third rail, don't go anywhere near it. There were a number of fatalities from the third rail by people being careless. My father was an early day teamster, and he was going to load rock over here at the quarry. His horses got away from him and dragged their chains over the third rail and electrocuted the horses.
Still continuing east, the interurban climbed the only hill along its route around Jovita Boulevard. Cruising along the hillside, the interurban passed through the tunnel that had created so many construction delays. In the tunnel, the train made a tight left turn and began its journey north. Passing through the towns of Bluffs, Pacific City, and Algona, passengers could gaze at the lush and fertile farms, some of which were the homes of railway employees.
There was a conductor by the name of Cummings who, coming out of Seattle on the interurban, passed right by his house on a trestle. To let his wife know what time he's going to be home for dinner, he would wad up a piece of paper and sail it off the back of the car into their backyard. And that time on it would tell his wife what time to have dinner when he come home.
2 miles north of Algona, the interurban arrived at the depot in Auburn. Within its first year, the new railway brought prosperity to the surrounding communities. Abundant dairy farms and easy access to the railway convinced the Borden Company of New York to open its major West Coast condensing plant in Auburn. Selling mainly to the condensery, some 500 local dairy farmers prospered like never before. Beyond Auburn, the railway would pass through several small towns, cross the White River, and roll into Kent. Between this stop and the next major station at the Renton Junction, there were 8 miles of straight track that ran parallel to the Northern Pacific Railway. Any steam train entering this long stretch of straightaway was automatically challenged to a race by the interurban. Businessmen would often take bets on the two lines. Sitting on the edge of their seats, they'd watch the Milwaukee line, less than 100 feet away, race neck and neck with their electric car. More often than not, the interurban was the victor. Further north, the interurban arrived at Renton Junction, one of its major stops. From there, a 2.5-mile spur would take connecting passengers northeast to Renton, a growing city known for its deep coal deposits.
The Puget Sound Electric Interurban operated the same as steam railroads. They operated by train orders, and they were issued at various places on the line. The most important place on the line was Renton Junction, where the Renton trains took off to the east. There was a telegrapher at Renton Junction by the name of Sam Neal. To give the train the latest orders, would have a hoop. He would attach the latest order with a clothespin on there, and as the train sped by at 40 miles an hour, he'd hold a hoop up, and the motorman would run his arms through there like that, and as soon as he got it in there, he'd take off that note and throw the hoop down on the ground, and he'd go on his way.
From Renton Junction, the electric railway headed northwest, passing through Black River, Tukwila, Foster, Riverton, Allentown, and Duwamish. Near the Meadows Depot, the third rail ended, and from there on, overhead wires powered the train the rest of the way into Seattle.
Motormen would signal when they got to the end of trolley wire, and the conductor would lean out the rear window and pull the trolley pole down. When they got to trolley wire, the motorman would again give a signal, and the conductor would lean out and put the trolley pole up on the wire. After putting up the trolley pole and taking it down about 40, 50 times a day, they got pretty efficient.
Beyond the Meadows, there were several more stops, including Georgetown, where cars were sent for maintenance or, in some cases, to be rebuilt.
South King Street in Seattle was all water that came in, was all part of Elliott Bay. The water came clear into the foot of Beacon Hill. First Avenue South is a sand spit out about as far as where Sears Roebuck is. When they built the interurban, they had to put in a lot of piling and a lot of fill to get the interurban out that way.
The station on Spokane Avenue was the last stop before the interurban made its final stretch into Seattle.
Seattle Terminal.
After a 90-minute ride, the Puget Sound Electric Railway pulled alongside the interurban building on Occidental and Yesler in Pioneer Square. Here, the conductors received their orders from the dispatch office while passengers bought tickets and waited for the next departure of the interurban. The Puget Sound Electric Railway was an instant success. By 1906, 34 trains a day, each with 2 or 3 cars, left the terminal cities every hour. From 1908 to 1914, the number of passengers averaged 2.5 million a year, all the more impressive from a Puget Sound population of only 400,000. From its earliest inception, Officials of the Puget Sound Electric Railway knew what profits could be made from hauling freight. Within hours of the first passenger run, cargo trains were loaded and began their operation. In 1870, when Erasmus Smithers discovered coal on his land, he had no idea how this mineral would change the area. With a large investment from Captain William Renton, Smithers tapped into one of the richest veins of coal in the region. With underground tracks stretching nearly to Kent, the Renton coal mine produced hundreds of tons of coal each year. Car after car was rolled out of the mine and loaded onto the interurban bound for Seattle.
The interurban hauled coal from that mine into Seattle, where it was transferred to city system and taken up to Post Street substation. The Post Street substation furnished electricity to run the interurban, and they also used the coal to fire the boilers, which heated most of the downtown building.
Deep inside the Renton mine, the work was strenuous and often dangerous, but the chance to earn a wage brought men and their families to the growing community, which now began to call itself Renton. The Renton-Denny Clay Company also used the interurban's freight trains to haul the bricks it produced into town, to build homes, roads, and office buildings. With dense forests surrounding the region, sawmills flourished in Milton, Valley City, and of course, Tacoma. 5 to 10 cars of building lumber were handled every night by the interurban.
The interurban started a terrific freight business, and one of the most important aspects of their freight business was a Spud Local. The Spud Local got its name because the interurban hauled many carloads of potatoes out of the valley.
During the peak of the harvest, the Puget Sound Electric hauled 3 to 5 cars of fruit and vegetables nightly. Because of the access the interurban provided, farmers markets emerged in many of the cities, the largest of which was the Pike Place Market in Seattle, which opened in 1907. That same year, the interurban hauled more than 10,000 freight cars. Steam trains, which were used to build the electric railway, lost a majority of their freight business to the less expensive and more efficient interurban system. By 1919, freight accounted for 20% of the interurban's total income.
Tacoma News Tribune. The interurban is looked upon as one of the great constructive forces in the upbuilding of the country between Tacoma and Seattle. New communities have sprung up along the route of the interurban, and many persons have established homes and commute into the two cities.
When the interurban began in 1902, it started furnishing electricity to people in the valley that didn't have any electricity previously. And sometime later, when they started furnishing it 24 hours a day, it was a big deal. They had big headlines in the papers. You can now electrify your house 24 hours a day. It's much safer than the coal oil lamps. The interurban opened up the valley and made travel so much easier for people that people could now live in Kent and get into downtown Seattle to their jobs that they couldn't do before, and they were as close to downtown Seattle as people living out in Ballard and the University District. The stations along the line were mostly just shelters where people could get in and out of the weather while waiting for the interurban. They didn't have a shelter at Allentown in the beginning, so the people in Allentown, who were always industrious people, the same as today, built their own station.
South of Allentown, developers caught sight of the hourly trains speeding through the valley and purchased every parcel of land in the area. As the town developed, it began to be known by its interurban station name, Tukwila. Named by Duwamish natives, the area's earliest settlers, and populated by an invention of the electric age, Tukwila symbolized the sometimes odd nature of progress. All down the line, the interurban brought growth and profits. Owners of the electric railway felt entitled to their share and raised ticket fares. Riders were outraged. Loyal interurban commuters boycotted the railway and tried out a new mode of transportation called the jitney. These rectangular buses made adequate travel, but would often break down, leaving passengers stranded. After several town meetings and a court battle, a compromise was finally reached. A prorated system was created in which higher fares were charged for longer distances traveled. Between 1900 and 1902, a young Greek immigrant opened two of his first motion picture theaters in Seattle and Tacoma. Over the next 2 decades, Alexander Pantages parlayed his success into the largest individually owned theater chain in the country. With 2 of his grandest structures in Tacoma and Seattle, and a transit system running to all points in between, the culture of the big cities was now accessible to distant communities.
It will be noted that with the last car leaving Seattle for Renton at 11:40 p.m., citizens of that suburb may attend the theater in Seattle any night in the week, a privilege they have heretofore been denied. The Seattle Daily Times.
Farmers and their families were now able to enjoy major events in the city, like the Alaska Yukon Pacific Exposition. City dwellers could attend the Puyallup Fair out in the country. For those who could afford to ride in style to these events, the Interurban offered luxury cars.
The third car had an open observation, and it was equipped with plush seats and even spittoons, because most of the people that rode in that car paid an extra 25 cents, and they were businessmen who usually had a big black cigar.
Horse racing season at the Meadows attracted enormous crowds in the summer. For such events, the Puget Sound Electric assigned several cars to shuttle passengers to the racetrack. When these were filled to capacity, flat cars normally used for freight were hastily equipped with benches and sideboards and became known as the Meadows Racetrack Special. In addition to horse racing, nearly 3,000 racing fans were treated to an entirely new spectacle one sunny afternoon.
The Post-Intelligencer, August 13th, 1905. Seattle's first automobile race meeting was held yesterday at the Meadows. Contrary to general expectation, no one was killed and no one injured.
Introduced to the public only a few years earlier, the automobile was making enormous strides. Henry Ford's production lines in Detroit assembled automobiles efficiently and economically. No longer a novelty for the wealthy, this new mode of transportation was now available to the masses.